Shalom and welcome back to Chain Languages. Spoken across most of North Africa today is the Arabic language, or rather several mutually unintelligible Arabic-derived languages that many still insist on calling one language, such as Maghrebi Arabic and Egyptian Arabic. However, long before the Arabs colonized the South Mediterranean coast, long before the Romans subjugated the same area and made them provinces, and long before the Phoenicians or Greeks set up various trading colonies, there were the Amazigh people. The Amazigh have miraculously managed to survive thousands of years of colonization, and have even managed to reclaim a lot of what they lost. Moroccan culture and language are hugely influenced by the Amazigh people and their various languages. Many Amazigh dialects have managed to persist today, some of them having millions of speakers. They stretch from Morocco and Algeria all the way to the Siwa Oasis and southern Mauritania. This has also obviously led to political movements of greater self-determination of the Amazigh people in their homeland called Tamazgha. Yet despite Amazigh being one of my favourite language branches of the Afro-Asiatic language family, I have never talked about them before on this channel. So today I'm going to change that. Let's get straight into the video. Yalla, matchilim. Amazingly, Amazigh is united under one flag, shared by all Amazigh, although many groups have their own unique flags too, as we will see. The Amazigh languages are sometimes collectively called Tamazight, although that also refers to another Amazigh language as well, rather confusingly. It is a branch of the Afro-Asiatic language family, in the same way the Semitic languages are. Amazigh can be divided into four main sub-branches: Eastern, Tuareg, Western and Northern. Furthermore, Eastern has 3 endangered languages, as well as 2 fairly recent extinct ones. Tuareg is composed of 4 main languages and some smaller dialects that are split between Northern and Southern. Western is home to just 2 very small and critically endangered languages called Zenaga and Tetzeret. And finally, Northern is split into 3 main groups: the Atlas languages, the Zenati languages and Kabila. Northern is by far the sub-branch with the most speakers, and both Kabila and the Atlas languages have millions of speakers and enjoy official status in Morocco and Algeria. Before we start looking at these languages in more detail, you may have noticed I've been referring to these languages as the Amazigh languages, and the people as Amazigh, and as previously mentioned, the name Tamazight can also be used collectively to refer to them all. There is another, more common name used in the West, the Berber languages. However, I find it important to refrain from using this name, as not only is it an exonym that the people themselves don't use, but it is also derived from the same root as the word barbarian, and develops in a derogatory manner towards these people from both the Arabs who colonized the area and the Western world who learned more about it. Similarly, the names Moor and Moorish are also outdated, though these names are not as negative as Berber in connotation. Also, you'll probably notice this GH digraph quite a lot in Amazigh languages. It represents a voiced velar fricative in most Amazigh dialects, though sometimes it can be a voiced uvular fricative, which is how I tend to pronounce it myself. Some Amazigh renditions into the Latin script even just use the IPA symbol for the voiced velar fricative instead of writing GH. Anyway, let's begin with the Tuareg sub-branch. Tuareg is the second largest sub-branch of the Amazigh languages. It is spoken across this general area, and as you can imagine, being in the heart of the Sahara Desert, the Tuareg people still today live a nomadic lifestyle, whereas the rest of the traditionally nomadic Amazigh people now live in permanent settlements. Also, between 2012 to 2013, an internationally unrecognized and short-lived Tuareg state existed, called Azawad. Tensions still exist now, and Tuareg militants occasionally skirmish with the Malian government. There are 4 main Tuareg languages. The largest is Tawelemet, with approximately 801,000 speakers, found in this area. The next is Tamashek, with around 500,000 speakers overall. It gets a bit more confusing from here, as the next language, called Ayir Tamashek, is reportedly a variety of Tamashek which has diverged. And to make matters more complex, Ayir, also called Tayirt, and Tamagarst, also called Temesgrist or Tanasfarwat, are also considered by Ethnologue to be their own separate languages. The trouble is, these languages, despite having hundreds of thousands of speakers, are widely understudied compared to other Amazigh languages. It is important to note that all the languages discussed so far are Southern Tuareg. There is only one Northern Tuareg language, and it is also the least spoken, that being Tamahak, with 77,000 speakers. living across the border of Niger, Algeria, and what's left of Libya. Although it does differ across these languages, the phonology of the Tuareg languages roughly looks like this. This phoneme inventory belongs specifically to Tawel-Lemet, but the others are very similar. As we can see, there are a simple set of vowels contrasted by a large variety of consonants. To prevent myself from repeating myself in further sections of this video, we'll talk about the writing systems that Amazigh languages use, as this applies to more or less all of them. Modern Amazigh languages tend to use what is called Berber Latin alphabet. It's not quite universal, as some Amazigh languages have their own differences for sounds they don't share with others, but for the most part it is shared across all the Amazigh languages. The Arabic script has also been used to render Amazigh languages in the past, however this surprisingly doesn't seem popular today for saying that almost all the countries where Amazigh languages are spoken are also Arabic-speaking countries. However, the traditional and ancient script of the Amazigh is Tifinagh, now revived in the form of Neo-Tifinagh. The script is official for the standard Moroccan Tamazight, although it's not really caught on as most speakers just use the Latin script. The only Amazigh that use the traditional Tifinagh script today, however, are actually the Tuareg people, and it's quite popular instead of the Latin script. Now, sadly, I could not obtain a sample text for all of these languages, but Omniglot provided a text that is taken from the New Testament, so I'm not too happy about that, but it's the best we can do for the language. This text is from Mark 2:1-5 in the Tawel-Lemet language. For now, however, we'll move on to the next sub-branch of this video. This next section will be rather short, sadly, as the western sub-branch only contains two languages, Zenaga and Tetzeret. Zenaga, or Tuzungia, is spoken in southern Mauritania and northern Senegal in a small village commune called Maderda and some of the surrounding area, and it is noticeably cut off from the rest of the Amazigh world. The language is critically endangered with only around 200 known speakers to exist, and Zenaga actually has a long history, once being one of the most widely spoken languages in the area, being spoken across all of Mauritania, then facing a tragic decline after the Senhaja, also known as the Znaga, were defeated in the 17th century by the Arabs in the Char Buba War, which was the beginning of their decline. The language bears this phonology, and it's actually the phonology that makes it distinctive, as the Zenaga language is believed to be the most divergent out of all the Amazigh languages due to a number of sound shifts that took place. Some of these same sound shifts are seen in Tetzeret, as well as shared vocabulary, letting us know that they are both related. Talking of Tetzeret, the endoname is Tinseret, which means from Sirte, which is a city of Tripolitania, a long way from where Tetzeret is spoken in Niger, and there is no particular evidence that they ever came from Sirte in the first place, though it is possible. You may notice that Niger is also a long way from the western Amazigh-speaking community in Mauritania, showing how these people have been separated by thousands of miles of sand, yet their languages share similar features. Despite this, the Tetzeret-speaking communities identify themselves as being Tuareg and have lived alongside the Tuareg for centuries. It wasn't until 1981 that linguists realized that Tetzeret is not a Tuareg language, but rather a Western Amazigh language. But culturally speaking, the Tetzeret are indistinguishable from the Tuareg today. The only thing that is different is their language. Tetzeret was recorded to have around 2,000 speakers in 2017, but the same survey also showed that all the speakers are bilingual in the aforementioned Tawel-Lemet language, and the speakers were choosing to teach their children Tawel-Lemet over Tetzeret, meaning the language is possible to die within the next generation or so. Despite the sad state of both the two Western Amazigh languages, they have left their mark on the local place names throughout Mauritania and Niger, and a study also showed that Western Berber, though not specifying which one, left a significant impact on Koranje, an unrelated northern Songhai language with over 20% of its vocabulary coming from Western Amazigh, presumably Zenaga. However, we are now going to move on to the most spoken sub-branch of the Amazigh languages. As mentioned before, there are three sub-branches of Northern Amazigh: Kabila, a language of its own spoken by a large minority in Algeria. Their flag is in the corner. The Atlas languages are spoken in central and southern Morocco, and the Zenati languages spoken in northern Morocco and across Algeria. Let's start with Kabila, known as Takbailit. With 3 million speakers in Algeria, making up 10% of the population, it's easy to see why they have a separatist movement. But there are also 1 million speakers in the diaspora, mainly France. Being one of the most spoken Amazigh languages, we have more to work with in this video. Here is the Kabila phonology, having only 3 vowels but many consonants. This seems to be a common occurrence in Amazigh languages. Administratively, in Algeria, Kabila is written in the Neo-Tifinagh script, as seen on road signs and official documents. However, the speakers themselves, both in Algeria and the diaspora, prefer to use the Amazigh Latin script, as it is used on the Kabila Wikipedia. Here are both the respective scripts in Kabila, with Tifinagh first, and then Latin. Finally, here is a sample text of Kabila, and for the first time in the video, it shows the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in both the Tifinagh and Latin scripts. Next, we have the Atlas languages. Arguably, they are all one language, as they are said to be mutually intelligible. However, the Royal Institute of Amazigh Culture in Morocco classifies them as 5 separate languages. Tamazight, not to be confused with standard Moroccan Tamazight. This language is also known as Central Atlas Tamazight. Tashelhit, also known as Shilha, Sanhaja Desraïr, Romara, and finally Lisan al-Gharabi, which is now extinct but was known to be effectively a dialect of Tashelhit. Tamazight and Tashelhit are the 2 most spoken Amazigh languages in the world with very similar numbers, Tamazight having 4.7 million speakers and Tashelhit having 5 million. Their distribution is shown on these respective maps. It is also notable that the judeo-amazigh language is a variety of Tashelhit. The consonants of both languages are very similar with only slight variations, and they both share the same 3-vowel system, like Kabila. However, the way they write Tifinagh differs, with Tamazight on the left and Tashelhit on the right. Tamazight appears to be written in the Tifinagh almost exclusively, whereas Tashelhit is far more commonly written in Latin, with the Latin script shown here. As they are both very similar, the sample text is the same, with the Tifinagh below. Moving on to the rest of the sub-branch, Romara has about 10,000 speakers and Sanhaja Desraïr has roughly 50,000. The map here shows Sanhaja Desraïr in yellow, and the other map shows Romara too. Sanhaja Desraïr is rarely written, and when it is, it's written in the Latin script, but sadly I couldn't find any samples of it, nor its phonology. Despite being the lesser spoken one, I was able to find out Romara's phonology, which is shown here. It also has only the same 3 vowels as the other Northern Amazigh languages. Romara speakers write with this script, but again it's uncommon to ever write the language in the first place. Sadly, I could not find any samples of the language again. Now it may seem like this section is dragging on, so I don't want to spend too much time on the Zenati languages because there are a lot of them. However, most of them are very small languages with not many speakers. Here is a list of them. One problem is, some of these are considered dialects by some sources and languages by others. By far the most spoken Zenati language is Tarifit, known as Rifian or Rifian-Berber, with 1.3 million speakers, making it the 4th most spoken Amazigh language out of them all. This map here shows its distribution in northern Morocco, and another name used by the people to refer to the language is Tmazight, somewhat unsurprisingly, though with a slightly different spelling. The phonology of Tarifit shows a wide range of consonants, including dental fricatives, which weren't seen in Tamazight or Tashelhit. Rifian uses this Latin script, clearly very similar to other Amazigh Latin scripts. Despite being spoken by such a large amount of people, I couldn't find one piece of solid text, just lists of individual words. However, there are videos of the language being spoken if you're interested. This section has been way too long, however, and it's time to move on to the last sub-branch of this video now. Finally, we're about to discuss what might be my favourite sub-branch, the Eastern Amazigh languages. As this map shows, the Eastern sub-branch is spread over quite a large area with little pockets of communities that speak them. This is because the area is a very arid desert, and the spots where these communities live are oases. The easternmost oasis is actually the Siwa Oasis in Egypt, which many of you might know from Assassin's Creed Origins, and the Siwi language is spoken there, not Arabic. It's possible that the Amazigh languages were once distributed even further east, as many historians believe that the Sea group culture, an ancient civilization in southern Egypt and northern Sudan that existed towards the end of the Old Kingdom in Egypt, was likely an Amazigh culture. These oases across Libya and Egypt formed a dialect continuum, though they have mostly now become distinct and mutually unintelligible. If we take a closer look at this map, we can see that they are broken into groups. Firstly, the Nufusi language is shown on this map because it's still not clear whether it is an Eastern Amazigh language or a Zenati language. of course belonging to the Northern Amazigh group. The westernmost Eastern Amazigh language is Ghamadez, spoken in an oasis town of the same name. The Siwi language also has a community of speakers in the nearby Qara oasis. It is understudied but believed to be more or less the same instead of a distinct dialect. Here's where things get confusing. Due to the political status of Libya, it's really difficult to study the languages there. For example, a website dedicated to the Amazigh languages, which I will link in the description, titled Ghost Languages, disputes the Wikipedia page and goes into detail, claiming that two languages on this map, Zurg, also known as Kufra, and Jaqbub, listed as extinct languages, never actually existed in the first place, and are likely just the result of poor study. On a personal note, I couldn't find any evidence for the existence of either Jalu or Wadan, which are shown on these maps, just the nearby languages that exist. Also, these languages called Sokna, Fokaha and Tmesa are also the subject of large debate. On this map, they're listed as living, but if you look at the Wikipedia page for any of these languages, it will redirect you to Sokna and tell you that the language went extinct. Furthermore, different sources, both on the Wikipedia page and elsewhere, actually dispute the classification of these languages. Some stating that Fokaha and Tmesa are dialects of Sokna, some stating that they're all their own languages, and some stating that Sokna is one language and Fokaha and Tmesa is another. Despite this, it is impossible to find any evidence of Tmesa and Fokaha even existing, and the same blog I mentioned before also mentions this fact. To make matters worse, Sokna was believed to have gone extinct sometime in the last 30 years, but then one study done by Vaclav Blažič claims that the language was found again, still being spoken in Tmesa long after it died in Sokna. All of this does make it very confusing to know for certain which languages even exist on this map, but luckily for us, we know that Siwi exists and we can use it as an example in this video. The flag in the corner is the flag of the Siwi people, and it is the easternmost out of the Eastern Amazigh languages, with roughly 20,000 speakers. They call their language Jalan in Isiwan. Omniglot states that the supposed Jaqbub language that we said might not exist earlier is actually just Siwi, but it is not known for sure if it's actually spoken there. Siwi sports these consonants with some rather rare phonemes and is typically written in the Arabic script, which is uncommon for other languages in this video, but Latin and Tifinagh scripts exist too. Here's a sample text from Siwi, coming from a traditional Siwan love poem. Another language is Aujila, called Chilan and Awilan, with 3,000 speakers recorded in 2000, and it is now likely to be critically endangered or possibly even extinct now. It is once again spoken in a beautiful oasis of the same name, with a picture here of their mosque. Not a lot of information is available about this language, but it is recorded that S and Z are palatalized to Sh and J. Furthermore, the Proto-Amazigh V is retained as V, instead of being elided as in most modern Amazigh languages. Finally, the Ghamadez language, known by its endonym as a Kadamez, has 12,400 speakers according to 2016 data from Omniglot, and 13,000 speakers in 2006 thanks to Ethnologue. It's written in a modified Amazigh Latin script, and once again, this is its phonology typical of most Amazigh languages. Sadly, I could not find any written examples of either Aujila nor Ghamadez. Hopefully the situation in Libya will end someday and the country will be opened up to more study. For now, however, we're going to conclude this video. I hope you've all learned something new about the Amazigh languages. I learned so much that I didn't know before myself when I was researching this video, and the Amazigh languages have to be one of my favourite branches in the Afro-Asiatic language family, with such amazing diversity spoken by people with a rich history and culture. If you found this video interesting, please do let me know in the comments what you liked and what we would like to see next time. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel. We're starting to approach 5k now. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Yalla bye.